16, holding her hand, they were wasting all the time they had. They were building big wonders they knew. Time stayed as long as they wanted, remained as much as they needed. The world flies around me with you. Won't you be mine forever? Stay here together, we can nurture each other. Find us another world to be. All the beauty we'll see. Won't you sing me a song and take me among the flowers? We'll grow, we'll conquer the world. These feelings will remain with me. She was 15, spinning in a daydream, waiting, counting and wishing for that ship to sail them away. Can't you see it's coming, shining in the distance, beaming, leaving all reason behind. Let's be here and stay. Let's stay here forever, be here together. We could nurture each other, find us another world to be. All the beauty we'll see. Won't you sing me a song and take me among the flowers? We'll grow, we'll conquer the world. These feelings will remain with me. Won't you be mine forever? Stay here together, we could nurture each other, find a different world to be. Hope it's beauty we'll see. I'll sing you a song, it's taken so long. The flowers we've grown are standing alone. These feelings have remained with me.
Got me upside down, spinning around you. Wanna taste the clouds, dance with the moon. Take a trip around your body. Boy, I love the way you got me. Starry-eyed, got me starry-eyed. Losing all my focus, I can't even control it. You know your lips are golden, baby, get me high. Touching me like lightning, yeah, keeping it exciting. You know exactly what to do to blow my mind. You're from another planet, I've never felt like this. I don't know how I ever survived without it. I'm starry-eyed, got me upside down, spinning around you. Wanna taste the clouds, dance with the moon. Take a trip around your body. Boy, I love the way you got me. Starry-eyed, got me starry-eyed. This bed is at
think something new under the sun. You can't take back them things you already done. No. You blame things that you do on somebody else. No. But they all see is you need help. But still you try so hard to cover up your games. You try so hard, hoping that one day something gon' change. You waste all of your time covering up your tracks. Spend all your days running away. You gotta watch your back, and that's the facts. You spend so much of your life scheming and trying to get over. Got you wondering why you come around. All you get is cold shoulder. Yeah, you try so hard to cover up your games. You try so hard, hoping that one day something gon' change. You try so hard. Yeah. You try so hard. You try so hard. Yeah. You try so hard. Give me, Can't run away from you.
Nothing out there could ever stop me.
Hello and welcome back to our show from the Berlin Design Week, and today on our Saturday evening show. And it was a very nice evening yesterday, and we had so much fun. And we want to say thank you to all the people who were writing comments beneath the Facebook accounts, the YouTube accounts, and thanks Berlin, we are now also on Twitter. So if you like, you can join us over Twitter and write down your questions if you have them for the keynotes, or if you want to join our show, you can also ring the number of our studio. And what's the name of the show? Hi Ludwig. Oh, wait a moment. You're muted. There you are. It's a lot of sun behind me and beside you. So we are so far away from each other, but at the same planet. How was your day, and how was the day in Berlin today?
Yeah, the weather's great. The city is still crowded, and people in the parks, and having a beer or ice cream. So it's a great time to celebrate. It's opening up in Germany, at least.
And the last days, lots of people were writing, "Hey, we missed something," and we are asking what they are missing. They don't say anything, and today we found the idea. We miss someone. Look who is here tonight and joining our team. Hi, Gamu. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing today?
Sorry. Hi. Thanks being here and being part of our team. Ludwig, what we can say about Gamu?
Oh, maybe she can talk about herself, but she is member of the moving school team since a year now, and a very lovely person to work with. So, Gamu, do you want to say something about yourself?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here finally after 2 days of missing the show. So for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Gamu. I come from Zimbabwe, and I'm currently studying English, American Studies and Business. And I've just finished my coaching training, so I'm focusing on women empowerment coaching. And I think it's a very great addition that I'm here today, because I think we can have many ideas of how we can include more women in things like this. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Looking forward to the evening.
And you have watched the last two shows. And what do you say about yesterday's show? There was a lot of women power inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a very important topic. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but I think entrepreneurship is something that women should be focusing more on, because I believe that we have great ideas. We just need that little extra push. I think it was a very perfect topic. Thank you for hosting it yesterday.
Yeah. But Ludwig, we have a bad news for tonight, because one woman we will miss. And because...
Well, first of all, I think we should start with the good news, because we have Alf Rehn in the show tonight, and that's a really great gift. We will see him in a moment. There he is. Hello, Alf. Great to see you. And that makes it Easter and Christmas in one day today. So thank you for coming and giving us a talk. We will talk a little bit more later. And yeah, the thing is that Carolina is not well, so she will not be live here tonight, but she sent us some music, and so we can listen to her great voice and her band. So that's I'm looking forward to that also very much, because I like her a lot. She's a great singer. And she was here actually starting moving school in 2012 with us.
Yeah, so we will celebrate her in a few minutes with a video, and she sent it to us. And Alf Rehn is from Copenhagen today. How is it over there in Copenhagen? The weather and the people?
Today has been actually one of the first really warm days in Copenhagen. It's been very sunny, which you might spot from my face, because I've been able to be outside for the first time in a very long time. It's getting busy. I live in the very heart of Copenhagen, the most central touristy area. So it's getting even annoyingly busy. Lots of people milling about and enjoying the sunshine. But you take the bad with the good.
That's true, and we will hear something from you as a keynote, and Ludwig wants to say something in advance before you are starting. Ludwig, Alf Rehn, where you met him the first time, and
well, it's actually one of those people you meet on the internet. So we had some contacts before in the past years, and I think I met him the first time in his book. This is a German edition on dangerous ideas, you know, I have to, for my job teaching also innovation creativity here in University of Kassel, I've also have such a one or two shelves of these innovation books and entrepreneurship books. And I thought, okay, there's another one. I like the title and the hand grenade on it. Because I didn't know him. So, but when I read this book, I thought, okay, this is really different. It's not boring or repeating what I've read so far. And he is really a really good writer, great language, and also, you know, with surprising ideas, and a very good person to observe what's going on in companies. So I recommend this book. And here's the second book. It's called Innovation for the Fatigued: How to Build a Culture of Deep Creativity. That is what we can observe in, you know, when in companies or organizations, somebody's coming like a workshop leader and say, okay, today we're doing some innovation for this company. Oh, not again, you know. So so that's the innovation fatigue, because we use that so often, and in the end, it's nothing new, or it's really boring. And he's really describing that very well and very detailed. Also, what I liked about this book is to see that changes have a lot to do with personal relationships and the atmosphere in a company. And what he will, or what I asked him to talk about, I don't know if that is really going to happen, but what really touched me was this talking about deep creativity versus shallow creativity or innovation. So, you know, what do we need these days? I mean, there's so many ideas, but which of them are really, you know, worthy to follow? Where should we put our energy in? So I'm hopefully listening more today. But so he is a professor of innovation design and management in the University of Southern Denmark, and he likes gin, as he wrote in his CV. And Alf, you are a research professor, right? So you're mainly doing research?
Well, I do teach as well. I teach quite a lot, and I supervise. I'm a head of section, and I am a kind of, in Denmark, we don't have pure research professors. You can buy yourself out of teaching, but I often think that that's a bit of a cheap move. I like teaching. I think it's important to engage with students and kind of get their perspectives on things. But yes, my main job is research.
And can
and
you
also
tell?
you
Yeah, okay.
you
And
do
can
a
you
lot
tell?
of
Yeah.
you do a lot of consulting also with companies. Is this a very fruitful job, or do you get annoyed by the, you know, things that change so slow?
Well, there are different kinds of consultants. I always say that I've been a very lucky man. So I am a full professor. I get a full salary from the university, which means I do take on some advisory work and help companies. But I've never had to grovel in front of a company and say, please, please, please give me work. So I only take on work I think is interesting. I only take on work that I think is fun. And I've had situations where CEOs have come, you're going to come in and you're going to do this. And I go, no. And they go, what? But we'll pay you. I say, it doesn't matter. My kids will not go hungry if I say no to you. I have a salary I can manage. I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in that problem. I'm not interested in necessarily your company. And that means that I'm kind of see myself more as a free spirit. Yes, I have worked with many, many corporations. I've worked with governments. I've worked with the European Union. I've worked with the weirdest kinds of global corporations and transnational organizations, but always on my terms. There is a certain freedom one can have when one is fully tenured as a professor, and I've tried to make the most of it.
Stefan, you had a question?
Yeah, just because of teaching and how is the situation in university, we always ask our guests how it is at the moment. Is something changing? Is the pandemic situation better solved at the moment? And how is it in Copenhagen? Yeah.
In Denmark, students are now allowed to go back to the university, but of course, all our courses are finished for the academic year, so that's more that they get to work in the labs. I think that the pandemic situation has, it's been a struggle for a lot of teachers. We've had to move to online teaching. Almost all my teaching for the last 12 months have been completely online, as has supervision. And I think when we're going to look back at this, I think we're going to say that there actually was a silver lining to a really, really terrible situation, because even my most traditional and conservative colleagues now know how to handle online teaching. And we've been able to find ways to engage with people over networks. And I found that supervision, for instance, can become actually even more efficient online than with the usual people shuffling in and out of your office. So, yeah, it's been a struggle at times, but I think that this might have helped universities to find new and at times at least better ways of working.
Okay, but don't you think that beside that, like innovation or a new situation of doing more online, that the didactic on teaching in university is really lacking a lot of spirit, a lot of creativity?
There are, of course, negatives. Nobody doubts that there are negatives. And Lord knows there have been situations where I kind of looked at my own teaching videos and gone, oh my God, this is boring. I can't do the examples. I can't do the Q&As. I can't do the interactive bits. Of course, it's different. And that's why I say I think this should be seen as a learning opportunity. There is forms of teaching that can be very well translated into an online environment and even improve in an online environment. I found that, for instance, rather than what I normally do, which is give 90-minute lectures, which can work if you're one-on-one or one-to-many in a lecture hall, I translated a lot of interviews to 15 to 20-minute video clips. And that forced me into a different kind of teaching. And a lot of the students actually liked that. They liked getting kind of more slotted teaching, slightly more kind of pre-packaged stuff, being able to go back and say, what the heck did Alf ramble about now? As one of them pointed out, after listening to your video 3 times, I think I know what you meant. Which might be a condemnation of my teaching, but at least they had a chance to go back 3 times and learn at their own pace. So I think that the future of teaching will be hybrid. I think that we all now look forward to being able to be in the same physical space, to be able to kind of work with our hands and really kind of engage. But we've also found that some things can be done very elegantly over online platforms. So right now, on Tuesday, about 10 of my students have to submit their master's thesis. And they've all been thrilled about Zoom, because now, instead of mailing me, can I come and meet you on Monday, reserving a 1-hour thing, they send me these kind of pings, hey, can you kind of hop on Zoom for 3 minutes? I have one question, literally one question. Okay, then I hop on, then we deal with that, they hop off again, and we go about our merry way. So we've learned new ways of collaboration. We've learned that not all supervision doesn't need to be 10 1-hour sessions. Sometimes it's, hey, should I do this or this? And then I go, do that. Thanks, off again. 1-minute supervision. So I'm not saying that, oh, online is the only way. I'm saying we should find the benefits from new ways of working. Because Ludwig, as you well know, I'm a big believer in trying stuff out. Some things don't work, then you dump that things. Some things work really well, then you kind of keep doing those things, and we muddle through. And I mean, I think also, which I think is quite nice, is that, and it links to what our delightful colleague here pointed out about female empowerment. There is often in a classroom environment this thing, in many of the classes I've taught, I'm not saying it's universal, in engineering schools, where you have the very loud boys at the front of the class who simply kind of dominate the conversation, and the quiet girl at the back doesn't really come through. A lot of that disappears when you're in an online space, where the quiet girl has many ways to kind of bring her question through chat boxes, through emails, through a WhatsApp comment, through kind of linking with me on LinkedIn and saying, oh, listen, I don't want to ask in class, but I'm going to ask through this instead. So, I mean, there are benefits to online teaching. I think those should be celebrated. And I feel that, in curious as it may seem, with some students, I think the possibility of, for instance, being able to meet on a Sunday, because, well, in these lockdown days, all days become pretty similar, and having a very kind of chill, I've had my coffee, I need to go to the office, we could just sit here and kind of shoot the breeze, has brought me closer to students. Not all of them, but some of them. And also, and this also connects a little bit to kind of the notion of female empowerment. One thing that I'm often struggling with is, of course, the power dynamics of supervision and the power dynamics of teaching. Because, of course, where you are in a room, you are there, present, an older white man with a title. It's very kind of I'm the boss, sit down, shut up, listen. In an online environment, some of these things disappear. So at least some of my female students have clearly kind of felt that this has democratized our conversation. And I love that. I'm a huge fan of that democratization, because, I mean, I am the age I am the gender I am the Caucasian I am. I can't really change that, but I'm a feminist at heart, and often find that the power dynamics that we create in teaching environments and in lecture halls are troubling to me. So I kind of, anything that lessens that male professors speak is, to me, a great bonus, and the online teaching has, to me, brought about that.
Gamo, is this your experience too?
Yes. I'm actually thinking, I love to hear that, because I know from the conversations that I have with Ludwig sometimes, this is what we are constantly talking about, that how can we lessen, this gap that is there, that there are certain women with so much potential, but they don't trust themselves, to come forward to say, hey, this is what I want done, this is what I want to do. And you saying that actually gives me confidence that, you know what, it's possible. We are coming forward, we can do something, and this is the time that we have been waiting for. So thank you for saying that. I love that power.
No, I mean, it's so one of the things I teach, and Ludwig doesn't know this, is I teach gender theory and queer theory to engineering students. And you haven't really fully lived until you've taught queer theory to male engineers. It is hilarious to really kind of talk about gender as performative, to go into a bit of Judy Butler, to kind of bring in the history of feminism. Because my students, they are not, even though they sometimes are originally a little myopic when it comes to gender issues, they are actually very quick to take on these kinds of issues. They are not, we have this kind of thing, oh, male engineering students are all in one way. No, my male engineering students, the only reason they haven't really engaged with feminism is nobody taught them anything about it. Or if somebody taught them, it was not done by somebody that they felt that they had an innate trust with. I come in, I look a bit like their dads, because they're basically the age of my kids. And kind of talk about this and kind of give them examples where it's not just do not sexually harass, and instead kind of talk about, okay, so what happens in an organization where we don't actually engage with all the potential? What happens if we, by our language, simply kind of exclude certain people? Or when we had a spirited conversation about why can't men wear dresses? Because it's coming to summer now. And summer can get really hot. And frankly, a dress is really comfortable in summer. I'm not kind of comfortable enough to actually wear one, but I look at women in their summer dresses and I go, that's a lot more comfortable than what I have on. I mean, I'm walking here in bloody jeans and feeling uncomfortable. My thighs are chafing. A floral dress would look terrible on me, but I'd be more comfortable.
It would look great on you.
And I do have the legs, but they're quite hairy. And then you talk with the students and kind of talk about this, and sure, you use humor and you use kind of a bit of silliness in there, and they go, yeah, that's right. A dress sounds really comfortable, actually, and they kind of start processing why, because it's just cloth. There's nothing about a dress is inherently genetically male or female. It is just clothing. In a lot of cultures, Scotland, various parts of Asia, you will have loose-fitting, flowing robes or similar for male dress, and there's nothing weird about it. But if I would turn up to this kind of little get-together in a floral summer dress, I would probably have gotten pretty weird looks, even from Ludwig, and he's a very tolerant man.
How did you get this idea of teaching that? Because is this about like personal formation of students? Why did you get into the subject for engineers?
Well, it is, I maintain that creativity and innovation is all about perspectives. It is all about trying to understand variance in perspectives. And that means that I study the most weird things, but all the things I study are really about borders. Borders about what's legal and illegal. Why is something illegal and therefore not worthy of study, whereas other things are legal and therefore you can study them. Why do we listen more to the young than to the old in many cultures, whereas in other cultures you listen more to the old than to the young? Where does the border go between old and young? And gender is just another delineation. And what I do is I look to various kinds of, let's say, epistemological perspectives, if you want to have a fancy word for it, and say, okay, how can we question this? So if you remember Dangerous Ideas that you show up, I kind of use a little bit of queer theory in there to kind of, when I kind of point to makeup for men, which L'Oreal actually started exploring, and actually that expanded into their skincare range for men, which expanded into an entire universe of things that are not strictly makeup as we traditionally understand it, but which are sort of male makeup. Go into any kind of place that sells these kinds of products and you'll see 17 kinds of razors, 800 kinds of shaving cream, moisturizers for every singular part of the male face, and all of them kind of sold with the notion, no, this is very masculine. But it started from a very queer perspective, saying, why don't we sell makeup to men? So when I teach, for instance, gender theory, or I teach queer theory, I always do it. And this is not trying to say you should become another gender. This is not saying you should explore your sexuality. If you want to do that, it's none of my business. Go right ahead. I'm liberal that way. But it's about trying to understand difference in the world. Because if we get, as male, get better at understanding what it means or how it might feel to be female, that gives us another opening into how is knowledge created and how is knowledge gendered. How might a slight shift, for instance, thinking about male makeup or men in dresses, might show us something about the world that we haven't seen before. So if you want to simplify it, this is actually creativity techniques at the very heart. It's just creativity techniques deployed in a way that isn't really well known to that many people.
How do the women in your course like that? I mean,
oh, they love it. Because anything that makes the men uncomfortable, they are absolutely adore. So they sit there and kind of giggle and go, yeah, now you know. So for instance, I do, and these are like in courses on technological change. One of the historical cases I use, which is absolutely wonderful, because you can really kind of push people's buttons. The development of the tampon. Now, the tampon is rarely discussed in creativity, innovation, and design because it's considered a very private thing. But at the same time, as all women know, life without tampons would have been pretty grim. It is a really nice innovation. It is quite handy for a couple of days a month. But the development of the tampon is actually a really complex story. You usually have to go back and kind of understand historically how menstruation was dealt with. And you have to kind of go back to various kinds of, not always that sanitary products, and how do you market an unmentionable object and go on. And again, you haven't fully lived until you talk in detail about menstruation to mainly male engineering students. They get a tiny bit pale in the face. They kind of go, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear anymore. And the women kind of sit there again and giggle and go, finally, somebody talks about something that makes sense to me. Now, and I'm not saying this as, oh, I'm this fantastic gender warrior. I just like to take examples that not every kind of almost 50-year-old male professor of innovation takes up, and kind of engage with students. Because, for instance, some students, and this is completely not due to me, they were doing this completely before I actually had them in my class, and are working on creating more sustainable tampons, because tampons, which you may or may not know, are actually an environmental issue. I mean, they basically, they don't compost very well, and they are used more than most men actually realize, and they have a there's a sustainability price to them. So there are some students from my university who are now working on solving that problem, which I think is fantastic. This is the exact kind of stuff that I want to see students working with, taking a real problem that has been marginalized by media and the powers that be, and try to shift the world, if ever so little, by engaging with it.
Well, that's a great bridge to your talk, I guess. And but before, so you can prepare, have a little bit of time. Thank you. It's a great. It's not a detour really, because Gamu is expert on that. Gamu, you can say what is your specialty in coaching also?
Yeah. Let me start by talking about the menstruation part. I actually founded this Zenzele project in 2018 because of menstrual poverty that is a problem in Zimbabwe. So our main aim is to try and eradicate this problem. And it's a very good thing that you talked about the sustainability part of it, because I think it's always important that we come up with sustainable ways, right, when it comes to things that are natural and things that we need from day to day. So I think I would really want to know more about that and look into how can we provide something that's sustainable, especially to countries like Zimbabwe, where I originally come from. And with my coaching, I think that also motivated me to go into coaching as well, because I've been working with different women. They talked about disposable pads, and they also talked about the ones where you actually have to wash them and then reuse them. I think reusable pads, I think they're called reusable pads. So we talked about creating those, but there was the problem with the materials to use and how we can actually source the materials. So I think this is one thing that I really want to learn about. And with the coaching, as I said, I'm focusing on women empowerment because of the ideas that women have and are not bold enough to come forward with them. And then there are also issues to do with self-confidence, self-esteem, and actually having the right support to go on with whatever they're thinking. So this is what I'm currently doing, but I wish to actually do more and research more on how women can become more confident in innovating stuff.
Yeah, great.
Good.
And I'm sure we will talk after the keynote of you, Mr. Rehn, again about different topics, especially of your keynote. And I want to tell the people out there that there is a possibility that you can join our show if you like. You can ring and after the keynote, for example, to ask questions or say what you are thinking about all the things we are talking here. Also about women menstruation and what topics you like. And you have the possibility, oh, look, there's Ludwig. You can ask him why the sun is burning him. And and you have also the possibility to go on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube to write your comments or your questions. So, Ludwig, before we start with the keynote, we want to show, we want to tell the people who are joining in this minutes, always people come and go, and normally we have a second guest, a musician. She's not joining us tonight. We want to show 2 videos of her music. And Ludwig, can you say something about her? And then we see the first song, and after this song, we want to hear the keynote of Alf.
Yeah, Carolina Katún. She is a Mexican-Swiss singer, and she's performing with her band TEOL. They all live in Paris, and she has it's a mixed crossover of jazz and South Central American folk music, and barock and improvised music. And Carolina is a really interesting person. I met her in 2012, actually when we started moving school. And she was working in, we had Documenta here, working with Mexican artist Pedro Reyes. He's doing the sanatorium at the time, and art students were working in this sanatorium. He was putting up as an artwork. So there I worked with him too, like dealing with the students and situations which might be critical. And so I met Carolina, and she was really great buddy to start a little bit later our first workshops. And at the time, I already could get some taste of a beautiful voice. And she was next to her art studies, continuing that and taking classes. And also in the end, she was educated as a music therapist. So she's really a very gifted, talented person. But I don't know if you like jazz. I love it. And especially her way of fusion of different formations. So we will hear two songs with her band tonight. And we start with the first now.
Yeah, the first song is called New Morning, Morceau. And see you after that.
Para que canten los humildes de mis pagos, si hay que esperar la esperanza, más vale esperar cantando. Si hay que esperar la esperanza, más vale esperar cantando. Nacida de los boliches, donde el grito alza su llama, su canción de largas lunas, sabe la siembra y el agua, su canción de largas lunas, sabe la siembra y el agua, como un canto de la tierra. flor la canta siempre como si fuera una esencia, la garra hundida en el pecho hasta mirarse la pena, la garra hundida en el pecho hasta mirarse la pena. Un corazón de camino desde su canto regresa al despertar el destino que el pueblo en su pecho lleva. Al despertar el destino que el pueblo en su pecho lleva, como un canto de la tierra hay que cantar esta samba, hermana de los humildes, sembradores y esperanza, salsa de raíz de sangre del fondo de la guitarra. Como un canto de la tierra hay que cantar esta samba, hermana de los humildes, sembradores y esperanza, salsa de raíz de sangre del fondo de la guitarra.
Yeah, Carolina Katún. Ah, Ludwig, you're muted.
Huh?
You were just muted.
Okay.
Great music,
So, Alf, it's your turn.
spherical. Yes. So, we want...
Okay. I'm assuming that was my cue for starting my little intervention here. So I will attempt to share my screen.
Yeah, this will be great.
And which worked when we tested it a moment ago, and does not seem to work quite as well right now. There we go. And then I'm hoping you see the text moving school for Berlin Design Week and the date of today. If you do not, do tell me, because I can only see my own.
Everything is okay.
I can only see my own screen now.
Yeah.
So in these weird COVID times, we've learned to speak to cameras without really knowing if anyone's out there, which is always a bit scary, but also brings in a certain existentialist frisson to the teaching or keynoting experience. So very happy to be here, invited by Ludwig, who wanted me to come and speak at this moving school event, or what he described as a moving school event. I'll start by introducing myself a little bit, because a lot of you have absolutely no idea who I am, and why should you? So my name is Alf Rehn. I am originally a Finn. I'm still a Finn. I'm a Finnish citizen, but have worked all over the planet, really. I am an academic. Started off as kind of a critical theorist and an anthropologist, dabbled in philosophy, and became a full tenured professor at the tender age of 31, which, if you ask anyone, is a very stupid age to become a professor. You're not supposed to become a professor when you're 31. You're supposed to become a professor when you're 61 so that you get a really nice pension. When you become a professor, when you're still basically a child, and to all the 31-year-olds out there, I do apologize for just calling you a child. I'm just referring to whom I was at the time. So I kind of got very confused. What am I supposed to do with my life? And I realized that if you become a professor at that tender age, you have a certain responsibility. You have a responsibility to make something of that and not just continue doing the professorial things. So for the last almost 20 years, I've been dedicated myself to both doing academic things, writing articles for journals who absolutely nobody reads, but also engaging with creativity, innovation, design in very practical ways. So I've done everything from advising companies, working with organizations, and as I previously said, traveled the world. Right now, I'm advising a university in Equatorial Guinea. I have been the first Westerner to keynote on innovation in North Korea, which was an interesting experience, and have had the pleasure to meet people like Barack Obama and Jack Welch whilst doing these strange things. And I present this because I want to see myself as a sort of a kind of border walker. I cross borders. I like borders. I enjoy exploring what happens when we challenge borders. And when Ludwig invited me and asked what do I want to talk about, I said, well, I could talk a little bit about the work I've done for the last years on trying to understand what innovation is today, and in a way what creativity and design is today as well. And particularly when it comes to the question, is all innovation equally important? Is all innovation equally good? Because we have this word we use, innovation, that we use for a ton of different things. And we're very happy to use it about ourselves, about our products, about our services. And we can't seem to stop talking about how creativity and innovation will save the world. And on one level, I understand this conversation. Heck, I've been part of this conversation. But I've also been part of realizing that this conversation can be a little challenging and even problematic. So I've spent quite a few years now trying to peek behind the curtains of the innovation conversation. And what I've tried to do, in among other things, a book I wrote called Innovation for the Fatigued, to suggest certain engagements we might wish to open up for, through which we might challenge this monolithic discourse around innovation. And instead of talking just innovation is good, innovate or die, move fast and break things, or whatever your preferred cliche about innovation is, to try to say, maybe we should ask a little bit more questions when people say innovation, innovative, disruption, transformation. And I call this talk Between the Shallows and the Deep Blue Sea because I am a hopeless romantic and do enjoy a bit of metaphorical fun when I entitle things. And I will in this speak a little bit about deep innovation versus shallow innovation, but also some ideas I've had about what the notion of problems might be able to show us when we start discussing the potential, still the potential of innovation. Before I get into this, let me be academic for a moment. I'll do some funnier stuff later on, but let me be a little bit academic here. A lot of what I work with has to do with trying to understand what has been known as late capitalism. Late capitalism is a term that's not very fashionable right now. It was more fashionable a little earlier on, but I think it's still useful. It was introduced by Werner Sombart, the same guy who actually brought us the notion of creative destruction, later nicked and made more popular by Josef Schumpeter. But late capitalism is actually mostly connected, I think, these days to the American social theorist Frederick Jameson. And what both of them try to kind of say with the notion of late capitalism is to say that our age, our very market-driven age, is driven not by the kind of original classical capitalist logics of merely profit-seeking and merely exploitation, but rather that these have become more elegant, more complex, driven also by more cultural logics as we go along. And there are a couple of things that are very clear in late capitalism, and that is, on one hand, medialization. We turn everything into media, content, streams, Twitter feeds, LinkedIn groups, and so on. Media has become one of the defining characteristics of how any concept, any ideology, any notion of knowledge really works in the world. Whereas earlier, a researcher might be successful simply by writing good research, these days you want him to be, or her, obviously, I apologize for that little patronizing thing, you want him or her to be very successful in a TED talk, in a YouTube clip, on something like masterclass, and so on. Medialization means that a lot of the ways in which we want to claim that a piece of knowledge or a process of knowledge is valuable is that it can be medialized, communicated in an elegant fashion. The other, which has always been part of capitalism, is of course commodification, that we turn things into commodities, into something that can be bought and sold. And you might say, well, isn't that normal? I mean, obviously things are bought and sold. Yes, but in late capitalism, surprising things get turned into commodities, something that can be purchased, bought off the shelf, if you will. Now, I'm not presenting this to try to make some kind of major Marxist point. I'm ambivalent towards the political implications of this, but because researchers, students of late capitalism, and particularly those who've been interested in medialization and commodification, have given us actually very nice tools with which to try to understand modern concepts and how they are consumed, produced, distributed, and so on. And my personal interest is, of course, how this has played out in innovation. Now, I'm a professor of innovation. I lead a section of innovation. Innovation is not just my bread and butter, it is my claimed knowledge sphere, it is part of my identity, it is what I do all day, every day. At the same time, which some people know and some people don't, I have a very complicated relationship with the term innovation. Not that I'm against innovation, which I think would be a rather weird thing to be, but so that I am troubled by the fact that these days innovation is used in such a sloppy fashion and also communicated in such weird and wondrous ways that I've started to say we need to try to understand this better. Ludwig will know this, but some people might not. Even this last year and this year, the Corona years, if you will, more than 100 books on creativity and innovation are published every month. If you read 3 books on creativity and innovation every day, you're actually not keeping up, you're falling behind. And that's just the books. To that, there is an endless amount of magazines, Twitter feeds, LinkedIn, you name it. The innovation content tsunami is absolutely astounding. We have never talked about innovation as much as we do today. And to some, that might be a good thing, a delightful thing, the perfect thing even. But the problem is, it's not always so that just because something is talked about a lot, that it actually becomes used in the most efficient ways. We can, for instance, see that at least pre-COVID, the current figures are a little tricky to find. We spent, as a global society, a minimum, an absolute minimum, and I have the OECD data to back this up, I did some own calculations, so on, $3,000 billion US on innovation every year. As a global society, we use $3 trillion, 3,000 billion. That's a lot of money. To conceptualize how much money that is the gross domestic product of the 5 Nordic countries, which are all actually considered very rich countries: Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, and teeny tiny Iceland. If you combine the gross national product of those 5 countries, you get half of $3,000 billion. So we clearly have a lot of money that we spend on innovation. And again, you might say, fantastic. You have all this talk, you have all these books, you have all this money. Clearly, we live in the absolutely best of worlds. Now, at the same time, of course, COVID came and we weren't prepared. We'd spent billions and trillions of dollars on innovation, but nobody could even figure out initially how to produce enough face masks. And lest we forget, even during this COVID year, this year too, more than 700,000 children will die of diarrhea, an illness that we've been able to actually solve for nigh on a century. So there is a mismatch. There is tremendous mismatch. We've never had more money for innovation. We've never had more knowledge about innovation. We've never had more books and talk about innovation. Yet at the same time, we're failing to solve some of the most fundamental questions on the planet. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because of late capitalism. The amount of books about innovation, or for that matter, design, have made us believe that things are okay out there. They've made us believe that everything is in hand. And they have made us believe that because there are people out there like the current heartthrob of the innovation evangelists, Elon Musk, somehow will magically solve all the problems. But we're not. Because the problem with medialization and commodification is that they create a false sense of security. They create a false sense that we have things in hand. Today you can pay to become a master of innovation. You can take a little course, pay a little money, and you'll get a beautiful little diploma stating that you are now a master of innovation. Because innovation has become something you buy. Now, it's not real innovation. Of course it's not. It's a bloody diploma. But you feel as if it were. You can buy the book, go to the conference, invite the guru, get the diploma. And you believe that these very superficial things would actually solve something. Well, hate to be the bringer of bad news, but they don't. What late capitalism has shown us, most everything can be turned superficial. And that's what I claim here today. Design, innovation more, but design to a certain degree has been turned superficial. Yes, there are fantastic designers out there. There are fantastic innovators as well. But if we look at it from a systemic level, a lot of what's happened is that we have allowed the pretty pictures on the Instagram feeds to take over from an adult conversation about what true innovation and true design engagements mean. And what this means is that we are living in a world with tremendous resources, but at the same time, a very superficial, reductionist, impoverished conversation about the power of innovation and design. There are glimmers of hope. I'm not saying that everything's shit, because not even I would be that arrogant. But I'm saying that we have not been good enough at having this conversation. because we can make innovation deeper than it is currently. We can engage with design that would actually deepen its impact. But if we want to do this, we need to start not only to speak of words such as meaning and purpose and impact, but also be prepared to bring in a critique, a real adult active critique of what is going on today. We need not just to be able to present better answers, we need to start asking better questions. And I'm fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by the fact that our discussion about questions and our discussion about problems is actually as superficial as it is. Now, I teach, among other things, innovation. I also have taught. I've been a professor of entrepreneurship. There are some kind of fun things that happen when you actually read how the young generations get taught these things. For instance, what are you supposed to know if you are thinking about starting your own startup? Well, you can open up quite a few of the books that exist today teaching you how to become an innovator, an entrepreneur, a startup maven. And one of the things they will tell you is you need to solve the client's problem. Now, that is, of course, true. It is trivially true, but true nonetheless. And then they are also told, oh, you should solve the kind of pain point or problem that you yourself have. Now, this is already where these medialized books actually become dangerous. A lot of the people who start startups are skew young, often in their 20s, some obviously older, but often in their 20s. They tend to skew gender-wise towards male. They tend also to skew towards being somewhat better off, the kind of person who actually can afford to go to university. So you get a tremendous amount of people who say they're solving problems. But what problems are they solving, and how are they solving them? Well, I can tell you what kind of problems they're solving. They're solving problems people like me have. I am a white, straight man with some disposable income. Right now, in the city of Copenhagen, I have access to 4 or 5, I don't even bother to count anymore, services who are dedicated to the incredibly important problem of let's not make Alf cook his own dinner. They will present me with various ways of being able to have somebody else make my dinner for me. Now, I can tell you that is actually not one of the most critical problems in the world today. I can, if pushed, actually make my own damn dinner. If I wish not to make my damn dinner, I can actually go to a restaurant, or I can pick up my iPhone and pay money to have people not just cook it, but bring it and probably feed it to me whilst I sit there like the fat man in the infamous Monty Python sketch. This is not solving problems. This is overselling luxury to people who already have it damn good, because I have it damn good. I do not have problems. I have no problems. My life is fucking fantastic. Yet, there are tremendously many people who call themselves innovators or designers who are desperate to present me with even more solutions to problems I do not have. So I started thinking about problems. I started thinking about what are problems really? And also, how come we treat problems so superficially? How come we always kind of think that there's just a problem and you either solve it or not, a binary logic, solved, not solved? And I realized that it all starts from our very limited understanding of what even a problem is and also what a solution is. So I wrote a little essay on over and under solving problems, and I want to show it to you because it kind of will explain why I'm going to engage with deep innovation later. This is not the essay, but this is sort of the model for it. I kind of said that, well, you have both undersolving and oversolving problems. And undersolving a problem is to create a solution that doesn't fully solve the problem, but go some way towards it. And then you can have oversolving, in which you create a solution that is actually totally and utterly above and beyond what actually needed to be solved. And I also pointed out that these can be both positive and negative in scope. So we start with what might be the logical place to start: negative undersolving. Negative undersolving is when you are claiming you're solving a problem, but you're actually doing incredibly little. This is what we call a band-aid solution or a pointless solution. One form of negative undersolving might be, for instance, that we knew that we had a problem with too much CO2 being let into the atmosphere. So a lot of countries in their infinite wisdom thought, oh, let's create a market for CO2 credits. Now, this obviously didn't hit the actual problem at all. It only created a bit of a market in which some financial notions could be used to slightly change industry's approach to their carbon dioxide exhausts. It was an undersolving because it didn't go to the heart. It didn't even try to fully solve it. It just created this sense that we sort of are on our way to a solution, but also a very flawed and actually limited version. Now, you might say that this is not that negative. You might say, oh, any kind of solution is clearly better than no solution at all. I'm not entirely sure, because this is, again, medialization. If you create negative undersolving, you might make people think that you've actually solved a problem, but the actual problem remains unmanaged. But there can also be positive undersolving. In India, for instance, there is the notion of Jugaad, which is a form of hacked together innovation. And in the Western world, we talk about MVPs, minimum viable products, in which we might not entirely solve the problem, but we're at least presenting you a path towards a solution, a cheap and quick hacked together solution that would help you a bit. One of the examples I've used, for instance, is there is a tremendous amount of talk about how to support infrastructure in Africa. However, in quite a number of countries in Africa, and we all know Africa's a humongous continent, the different countries have very, very different kind of issues, problems, demands, and potential. So apologies for the sweeping talk of Africa. But a positive undersolving in Africa might be something as simple of trying to ship the very many used bikes that, for instance, Denmark throws away every year and ship them to Africa. Why? Well, if you are a poor cassava farmer in Uganda, a bike will not solve all your problems, but it will be a hell of a lot nicer than having to carry all your cassava to the market. It might give you a tremendous amount of extra time, and time that can be translated to money, so you can start solving other problems on your own. So positive undersolving, just because we have undersolved, doesn't mean we haven't made some progress. However, in the Western world, and in the design world, and in the innovation world, we tend not to undersolve problems. We tend to oversolve them. We tend to throw everything at a problem and create contraptions that are terrifically complicated solutions to problems people might not even have. Here, I'm not sure if my video is even on, but if it is, you should probably see me holding up my iPhone. It's an iPhone 12. It has a terrific camera. It has a MagSafe wallet. It has pretty much every kind of entertainment you could wish for. I like it because I'm a nerd like that. But even I see that this isn't, the latest iPhone is not a solution really to any problem. It is an over solution, because I don't need 3 kinds of cameras with LiDAR capabilities. I don't even know what those 3 cameras I now own do. I have no idea how to use the LiDAR on this product I paid a lot of money for. But I believed in the marketing. And Apple is very happy to sell me this shallow innovation and market the holy hell out of the fact that it has a magnetic back so I can play around with a new kind of wallet. And a lot of our innovation engagement these days is this. It's negative oversolving. It's creating slightly faster lunch services for people who look like me, instead of trying to engage with those 700,000 children that this year too will die of diarrhea. And then, of course, there is that holy grail, that field of dreams, which is positive oversolving, in which you build a platform, you build a technology like the internet, which in its early iteration does not necessarily have everything that the solution or the problem demanded, but which can grow into something that truly transcends what we even believed the problem to be. And I illustrate this because when I work with innovation in companies, I realized that one of the big problems is not that there isn't a desire to innovate in companies, because there is so much desire to innovate. But the problem is we don't fully understand, when we look at the different kinds of problems and the different kinds of ways in which we could approach them, how organizations become cultures that approach the problem of innovation in very different ways. I wrote about this in Innovation for the Fatigued, and I was, because I thought I'd find something fun for Ludwig, I was actually looking for the original sketch I did for trying to understand different kinds of innovation cultures in organizations. And here it is in all its glorious ugliness. Because I started realizing, when I was thinking about how organizations approach problems, that they came in broadly understood 4 different groups. Some of them were very kind of focused on creating the unique thing, the totally new thing, the thing nobody had thought of before. But a lot of them were very much followers, Me Too organizations. The kind of organization who looked to whether somebody else had already proven that a concept worked, somebody had already legitimized that it worked, that the media that existed around it allowed a specific kind of narrative to play out. And I realized also, when I talked to innovators, they talked about 2 different things. Some talked about novelty. They talked about creating what hadn't been there before, of putting basically a better spin on something that really kind of stood out. They were very much in the medialization. They wanted to be hailed for having this novel thing to come out. But then there was another group who didn't talk about novelty because they didn't really care about whether it was new or not. They cared about whether it had an impact, whether it mattered, whether it carried meaning. And I realized when I took these 2 kind of pairs of terms and created a little matrix, I could actually map a whole lot, not all, there are always outliers, but a whole lot of the companies I worked with. The ones I don't like working with all that much are the ones who are both followers, Me Too, and obsessed with novelty. I call those shallow innovation cultures. They can produce products, services, stuff like that, but they never really think about whether it makes any sense, whether it's very meaningful. They create an iPhone app because everyone else has an iPhone app. They create something that uses smart technology because everyone else is doing it. Right now, they're probably investing in Bitcoin. It's gone up, I think, 10% today as well. They're shallow not because they're bad people, but because their innovation thinking is shallow, because they've stuck to the wrong things. They stuck to, is this already legitimized, the social proof, and they stuck to the sense of novelty, the media proof. Then there were the ones who were followers, but also were interested in impact more than novelty. Those tended to be, and I apologize for the social innovators out there who thinks I'm now belittling them, social innovators. That is, they cared about impact, but they didn't really want to explore truly novel things. A lot of the social innovators or the sustainability innovators and so on seem to be most concerned about whether they would be seen as being social, sustainable, and all these other things. They cared a whole lot, but they also cared about how they looked, about how they were perceived, and they wanted that social proof, that confirmation. I was always more interested in the unique ones, the ones who tried to kind of fight a truly novel fight, fight and do something that nobody had done before. But there too, there was a difference. There was those who were trying to be unique, but they were still too obsessed with the novelty, whether it would play well in the media. And those were the show-offs. And the number one company here I have to mention, because I'm not saying being a show-off is all bad, is Tesla. Tesla is a wonderful company in many ways. They do a lot of fun stuff. It's interesting to see how they work, but they are show-offs. They are more obsessed with the novelty of a new design, a new approach, than with truly making an impact. And that leads me to that fourth quadrant, those who try to create something unique and do it with impact. And I claim there are far too few of these deep innovators out there today. And it's not because we're not smart. It's not because we don't have money, because we have both smarts and money. But because we as a society have been too caught up in the web of late capitalism, too caught up in how it plays in the media, too caught up in our Instagram society, that we have not created the kind of foundation upon which deep innovators can truly build. Now, some do it anyway. I'm working with a company that is transforming sunlight into drinkable water and is trying to find technologies to bring drinkable, cheap water powered by solar energy to the most aggrieved parts of Africa. And that, to me, is deep innovation. Creating something nobody has done before and doing that in an impactful way. So they are out there, but there are too few of them, and we need to talk about them more seriously. Because right now, a lot of them do not feel the love. They feel that they've gotten hid behind more flashy, more media-friendly innovations, and they're not seen for their innovative impact because our innovation discourse has become so superficial and weak. And deep innovation and the work towards deep innovation, it's a journey. It is not something that I can teach you how to do in a quick little keynote. It is a question of creating a social journey, a journey for our entire society, a journey for our world. And why do I talk about this? Why am I claiming that these kind of stuff is important? Well, I'll try to use my few last minutes to tell you why. I love innovation. I believe innovation is the pathway to solving the wicked problems we have in the world. The ecological crisis, the social inequality, the coming aging society, and many other things besides. We have a lot of problems that need solving, including those 700 needlessly dying children. But we can only start solving them if our innovation debate gets better. Right now, it's too dominated by flashy American magazines, by what gets published in Harvard Business Review, what gets picked up by Fast Company, what plays well in a podcast. What we need on a societal level is a thorough reappraisal of how we talk about innovation and whether we have enough terminology, enough models to truly engage with innovation, it's all its diverse goodness. The two matrices I showed you are very simple little things, but they are teeny tiny steps towards a richer innovation debate in which we at least can ask, what kind of problem solving is this? What kind of innovation culture is this? And we need to do this because today so much of what I read about and see about innovation is what I call, borrowing a term from Steve Blank, innovation theater. Corporations engaging with innovation with no aim to change anything, but only to show we too have young people who can play the disruption game. Or even worse, what I've called innovation pornography, in which these magazines present innovation tales that in their falseness, in their glib narratives and their technicolor representations are as close to real innovation as pornography is to a stable, meaningful human relationship. Because the commodification and the medialization I started by pointing out has not just kind of hampered innovation, it has turned it in the discourse around it into a perversion of what it should be. So what I'm talking about here, what I'm championing here, is developing an innovation critique. Not being critical to innovation, that's different, but in an innovation critique. Just like we are fully aware that you can critique a movie, because not all movies are equally good. We should be able to critique innovation and innovation books and innovation engagements and ask difficult questions about them. And we need to do this because the level of the problems we will be facing with the climate, with aging, with social inequality are so complex that we need an entirely new level of innovation ambition. One that doesn't accept negative under or negative oversolving. One that doesn't kind of think that because a lot of books are published that the real problems are being faced. We need a new level of ambition, and we can only gain this if we get a better societal conversation about all that innovation can be and the problems what it has become. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Ooh. My camera is a little bit, I'm frozen, yeah, at the moment, but there will be no problem.
Thank you very much, Alf. It was kind of exactly I hoped you would talk about, because that was this thing which was touching at your second book. And I think you made a really strong point today. And I'm really happy because this video will stay on YouTube, and people in our team, Moving School, and others can still watch it and also be challenged by it, because that's what you're doing, and that's really, I think, what we need right now, and that hopefully it's seen by a lot of people who are participating in Berlin Design Week, because I feel for a long time that in this design or innovation scene, as you say, there's a lot of showing off shallowness and apply, or and it's also so tempting. It's not that I'm over it. It's it draws me into it.
One should be very clear here. What I'm and I know I can come off as a bit bombastic and preachy at times, and I do apologize for that. But here, the point is not to condemn everyone who engages with shallow things. Lord knows I've written a fair few things that could be seen as shallow. I've worked with advertising and marketing that didn't really move the social needle in any direction. I'm a sinner, as we all are. And I often make this point when I talk to larger audiences is, no, the point is not to kind of figure out who's the bad guy in the room. The point is not finger pointing or going, oh, you're not deep enough and you're not engaging with the right things. It is to stimulate a conversation. It is to kind of start saying, some of the stuff we do, as one CEO, a nice guy friend of mine kind of said, yeah, a lot of the stuff we do is shallow innovation. But you know what? We're going to keep doing those because they bring in quite a lot of money. And I need that money to keep coming in. But I'm going to try to make a few things that kind of answer to your question here. I'm going to try to do a couple of engagement that might be a little bit more about this deep innovation, that have a little bit more of social impact, that answers harder questions. And that's I think all I can even dream of. We live in the world we live in, so we all need to kind of survive. A startup, if it gets money for one thing, then it should definitely do that thing because that's what it got money for. We shouldn't condemn the Volts and the Just Eats and Waitiers and DoorDash and Foodora and all the different kinds of food delivery services that are out there. They've gotten money for doing food delivery. They do a good service. It's fine. I'm not trying to condemn them. What I'm trying to condemn is people like me. People like me who work with this and do not talk about this. Do not talk about the fact that we could do so much better. Who do not talk about the fact that whilst I can use my fancy iPhone and my salary to order whatever kind of food I can imagine, there are still enormous amounts of children in Africa that do not have clean drinking water or toilets. And on some level, that is just wrong. That is societal, on a societal level, wrong. Why are we putting hundreds of millions into let's get Alf fatter and so much less into let's save children? That's my entire point. We need as a society to become better at saving children and stop trying to make me so fat.
Mm-hmm. The theme of the Berlin Design Week is looking out for new traditions, because so many things are questioned right now. And also, like I think on the 1st of June, there's a day about education of design. So, so where to start? Because I feel, or I've seen so many students or other also, other adults who really want to do something. They want to change something. Even business students, I had this misconception that business students, just want to make money. But I was convinced that a lot of them now in this generation really tell me, I want to do it differently. So then in the consequence, design education or innovation education or whatever has to change, right? So how to start that change in education?
Well, I think that the first step needs to be to create an understanding of the problem, as in the societal problem, the graveness of it. We recently redid our master's program in product development and innovation, and we sort of obsessively turned it towards sustainability. Kind of said, listen, This is not a program about how to create more products, because frankly, we don't need that many more products. We have too many products already. Look around you in your flats. I mean, there is stuff absolutely everywhere. And I'm sort of a minimalist, and there's still too much stuff in my flat. So we started from, this is not a program about how to create more, but about how to create better. So everything comes down to, okay, how do we plan for the circular economy? How do we plan for continuous reuse? How do we utilize digital tools, not just for creating more, but actually creating better? And how do we bring in different perspectives into this? So an engagement which I think was quite fascinating that a colleague of mine did, was they kind of brought in the question of the unborn. So often when we kind of talk about design, of course, user-centric and all these kind of words we kind of throw around. And then we, of course, mean somebody that we could face, somebody we could see. But who is actually the most important person for contemporary design? I would claim it is my unborn grandson. I do not have a grandson. I wish not to have a grandson very quickly, because I do not wish to be a grandfather. I barely feel adult yet. But at some point I will have a grandson, I think. I have 3 kids, so one of them will probably procreate. And I kind of look and think, so I'm going to die before the ecological crisis destroys the world. That's a simple fact. I'm not going to hang around. I'm old. I mean, even with good, we will destroy the world if we can keep doing what we're doing, but it'll take about 100 years, and I'm going to be dead in 50, even with really advanced medicine. So I'm gonna be fine. And my son, my oldest son is 25, so he's going to be, when I'm dead, he's going to be like 75. So he probably won't hit that problem. But his son, because he still hasn't kind of gotten a son, or my youngest son's potential child, he's only 8, so he has a lot of time ahead of him. And I'm kind of thinking about those grandchildren. So I said, okay, so how do we design, for instance, we work a lot with wind power. Wind power is a big thing in Denmark, you see. How do we create a recycling and circular economy logic for energy production that takes the unborn, so the unborn children, the children that may be born in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, into account? And that changes your mindset. That changes kind of how you think about things. But now you're not doing user-centric. Now you're kind of thinking about how did you even plan for stuff that happens after you're dead? How do you act in the now to make sure that once you're long gone, your errors do not negatively affect the by now unborn? And again, I'm not saying that little exercise would change the world. We have to be realists still. But we have to work with these tiny steps to kind of try to say, there is still so much to do. There is still so many of the basics we still haven't dealt with. And we talked about menstruation poverty in Zimbabwe, for instance. And menstruation poverty, of course, is a problem in far more places than Zimbabwe. Women have menstruated for, depending on where you start counting from, uncountable years. And we still haven't solved this incredibly basic problem. How shit are we as humanity? I mean, we are terribly bad at solving problems, really. We're awful. We have still to build a society in which kind of clean water and a toilet is guaranteed to everyone. And then we go on and go, oh, isn't the iPhone 12 a tremendous development? No, It's not. It is a symbol about how fucked up our society is.
No.
Sorry, I'm getting into ranting mode here.
But Alf, what do you think? Because when you're talking about your daughter or your son, of your son, and we have to think of these generations today, because in Germany the highest court also said this to our politicians, that they have to think of these generations, the unborn generation. But if it's still a problem to think on the generations at the planet at the moment. Yeah, we don't solve problems, you always say, we have today, and how we can transfer thinking about problems we have in the future. I'm always asked how we can find a way to give these people, give the people this kind of thinking.
I think what we're going to have to accept as a society, I mean, some of my more radical colleagues would say that we need a degrowth strategy, that our entire economic system is built on continuous growth, continuous expansion, and that the time for that is ended because we cannot grow eternally. I mean, there is a limit to growth. I'm not quite that extreme, I would say. I believe that there is still potential, but we might need to think about if not degrowth, then at least a cutting back. That is, do we need to expand in every kind of human activity? Do we need to kind of have this free-for-all for everything? Do you have any idea of how many flavors of potato crisps are out there in the world?
Do you?
Do you wanna wager a guess?
Yeah,
500.
7.
There are several.
1,000. 7.
You're closer. You're definitely closer. I mean, it's somewhere in the 5,000 kind of category. Last time I tried to explore this. Now, I do like a potato crisp. As I said, the world is working to make me fatter. For some reason, I don't know when we decided that should be our main task, but seemingly it is. I'm sort of just saying, maybe we only need 1,000 flavors of potato crisps. We could cut back with 80%, and still there would be enough space for squid ink potato chips and a few really weird flavors. We don't need to kind of go the whole hog. I don't know if you've ever traveled extensively in China, but if you go to some of the factory cities in China and see how these are churning out variations of products that are basically just designed for obsolescence. They're designed for landfills. They're just churning them out in case somebody might theoretically buy them, because that's how our economic logic works today. You throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. We've all seen the graveyards of the e-scooters. So we at one point decided, let's produce tens, if hundreds of thousands of e-scooters and see if anyone wants them. Okay, no, oh, well, let's throw them in a landfill then. It's this. We don't need degrowth, but we might kind of pull a little on the handbrake and go, yeah, maybe we've overexpanded here. We don't need. And of course, then comes the question, am I talking about government control of the world? Well, I would love to live in a world in which corporations had enough sense and a desire to collaborate that they could actually govern themselves. And I do hope this, but the totally free market, it can do wondrous things, but it is also a rather wasteful system. So we need a better system. And if I knew exactly what that better system was, I would be a genius on level that every Nobel Prize should be given to me right now. And I'm not a genius on that level. I'm not a genius on any level, as Ludwig well knows. I'm just a guy who kind of looks at the world and goes, do we need this many flavors of cheese? Do we need this many flavors of potato crisps? How many kind of citrus presses does the world truly need? So yes, I thought I too like Stark's citrus press for Alessi. It was a delightful intervention, but at some point you kind of have to go say basta, enough. There are problems out there that are more kind of central than just how elegant can you make your citrus press.
I just want, Gamal, before you say, I just want to take in the audience. You know, if there's anybody out there who wants to comment or ask a question, please write in the chat or call. You know. Well, there's no number. No, it's
but it's a chat. Okay, the telephone number is this one. But the people are listening quite well. But only thank you for this keynote and all this stuff. We have no question at the moment, so they like our discussion. So,
Gamu.
Yeah, Alf, I want to start by saying thank you so much for challenging my thoughts. I think there's a lot to think about, especially for someone like me, a young person who's also trying to see a better world for our generation. So this morning I was having a conversation, right, with someone who's studying design. I think they're studying communication and design. And we were talking about all these great ideas that they have. And I was just looking at them and saying to myself, wow, how can a person be so creative? But after they said everything, and so we were trying to figure out a way to move forward, then they're like, everything else is being done, or there's someone who's doing way better than I'm doing. So it seems as if with the Instagram society that you talked about and young people being into things that are flashy and all that kind of stuff, we have people who really want to innovate certain things that are helpful to our society, but they kind of like hold themselves back because of this noise that is out there. So how do we come out of that?
That's actually a very good point, and it's interesting. I've been teaching this class on theories and methods of technological change, because there is this notion that the internet and every kind of more efficient communication actually improves innovation and so on, and it does in certain respects. But if you look way back, if you look back to not just the 20th century, but to the 19th century, when rapid communication meant that your letter might be delivered within a country within a week, you had so many kind of inventors and people testing stuff out that had no idea what was going on elsewhere in the world. So you actually had lots more experimentation going on, because you could never check an Instagram feed to see if somebody else thinking of the same. They are. Well, no point then. So I think you're absolutely right. A lot of energy in experimentation, invention, and so on has been crushed by the possibility of being able to Google, oh, somebody else already did something even better, so no point in me even starting. Because, of course, how do you create the better thing? You start. Your first idea is always terrible. I mean, I'm a full believer in that our early ideas are always half-baked nonsense. We believe, oh, maybe I could build a better rat trap, and it would have not just cheese, but it would have a kind of a cheese and then a metal alloy thing. And then you start building it and you realize, my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. But you keep building, and then after a while you realize, oh, this actually isn't a rat trap, but it could be a really good way to improve toilet design or whatever. Yeah? So if we want innovation, we need to have people experimenting with weird stuff. But now, when we're teaching kids as well, that no, you need to do the research. Are you solving a real problem? Are you user-centric? And all the kinds of cliches we're working. Have you done your business model innovation canvas? I like Alex. Alex is a swell guy. I don't want to criticize Alex at all. I supported him before the even book came out, so don't get me wrong. But I mean, we get caught up in these externalities, and I'm kind of going, no, just start working. I'm not artistic at all. I'm not. I like art, but I'm not artistic or creative in that way. But I love working with artists, including a wonderful musician friend. And why do I like working with artists? Because artists dedicate themselves, they throw themselves into something, and they work with their hands. Artists are the true manual laborers. Of course, these are metaphorical hands. Some work with their voice, some work with their words, but it's all about actually doing. And a writer, a decent writer, a proper writer, doesn't care about whether the story has been told before. They kind of work on the story. All stories are really about boy meets girl, girl gets kidnapped by ninjas, boy kills ninjas. So I mean, all stories have already been told. So an author sits there, knows my story has been told, I'm going to work on it anyway and just tell it. All artists know that people have thrown paint on canvases for thousands of years, but they still go there and they do the work. And that's what we need from young designers and young innovators. Go into the lab. Go and 3D print something. Do the work. Work with your hands. It's going to be messy. It's going to be wrong. You're going to have to redo it. What you thought looked brilliant is going to fail, and still you keep working. So, I mean, we need, in a sense, a work ethic for innovation and design. And again, I'm not trying to condemn young people who get caught up in imposter syndrome, who get caught up in, well, this doesn't look good on Instagram. But I mean, my work, often with young people, is to kind of sit down with them and say, don't get it right, get it written. Don't try to get it perfect. You're going to fail. It's fine. When I supervise master's theses, which I do a lot these days, I'm going to go, no, getting a result which says this failed, that's a result too. Don't be afraid of that. You just work and hope that over time, you sort of have moved the needle a little bit. I mean, I'll tell you the dirty secret of all writers. I've published 18 books, I think, if you count all the academic ones and the smaller ones and stuff like that. I've probably written at least 20 more. And sometimes I look at them and I cringe at the absolute utter shit I've written. But that's okay. That's what a writer does. A writer sits down, bashes the keyboard, hopes that what comes out can be salvaged somehow. Sometimes it can't, and then you put it back into the drawer and you hope nobody ever sees it again. And that's what we need. We need more work. We need just to dare to fail and to try to make meaningful, impactful stuff and not get too caught up in the medialization of it all.
But does it mean we are also lacking empathy? Because the question is, I mean, if we have access to all these information, you know, how bad the world is, I mean, you know, how many people are suffering. And I mean, Gamo, you can talk about your country in Africa. So why is it not getting us? I mean, why, or how can we work for that, as you said, people are more looking in that or affected by that?
I mean, it would be delightful to hear kind of a Zimbabwean voice for this as well. But I'm gonna. So Ludwig and I don't know each other all that well. I mean, we've emailed and we've chatted and so on. But sometimes in Ludwig's emails, certain theological points pop up. We discussed the Pentecost recently, for instance, and I'm personally agnostic. That is, I'm a non-cognitivist when it comes to theological issues, and we can have a theological debate about that later. But I'm also have been for a long time interested in theological arguments. because I think that we've missed a trick in a sense of realizing that a lot of kind of theology is actually discussed themes that could be productive in other fields as well. And there is one theological concept that I find incredibly powerful and forgotten often, and that is the notion of mercy. That is, how do we show mercy, not just towards others, but also towards ourselves? And quite often when I work with leaders, for instance, one of the things that they struggle with is that they hold themselves to such high standards that they actually end up burnt out because they feel like continuous failures. And some innovators, and which were also some young people, they also kind of set standards that are never reachable. So I believe that we need a conversation societally about showing mercy. And that's why I came back time and time again to, I'm not trying to say Tesla is bad or Elon Musk is horrible, or if you do a food delivery service, you're a terrible human being. I mean, no, my heart goes out to these people, but I do believe that we need a conversation about humility and mercy towards everyone. And we need to accept that, for instance, our engagements in Africa, which have been many, and Lord knows many of them have failed in spectacular ways. We should show mercy towards that. It's not easy to change a situation after hundreds of years of colonialism, after a complex messing up of basically drawing country lines with a ruler, completely ignoring the cultural boundaries that you completely ignore whilst doing so. There's so much. But at the same time, we can't get caught up in this continuous, it's just wrong, all these horrible people did wrong thing. We need to kind of go, yes, errors were made. We need to show mercy towards that and go, let's move on. Let's get to the next level. Let's get to the next step. And we need to show mercy towards ourselves. I mean, I struggle with this. I kind of look and it's funny because when you work with borders, when you challenge things, the things I wrote a book called Dangerous Ideas, and the #1 criticism I got was, those ideas weren't dangerous enough. I don't think you are very radical at all. And I go, sorry. And then I feel bad for a little while. I go, yes, I probably should have thrown in more kind of really radical stuff. There was no cannibalism in there, as I recall. So maybe I should have kind of pushed the cannibalism angle a little bit. And then I go, no, it was a book. I tried to make a point. It wasn't perfect, but I have to accept it was what it was. And with Innovation for the Fatigued, it was, you didn't push the envelope and it wasn't radical enough. You have to kind of, let's crush capitalism. I go, oh, Christ, do I have to fix capitalism or the entire kind of global economic system? I have shit to do. I have dinner to cook. And then I kind of go, yeah, no, it's okay. You don't solve all problems just because you wrote a bloody book. And I'm talking about this specifically because what I'm sort of talking about is humility and mercy. We need to be humble in the face of the fact that our innovation conversation hasn't been all that terrific. We need to humble ourselves in the face of this and go, yeah, there's been a lot of bullshit said and a lot of stuff could have been done better. But there also needs to be mercy, which is, it's a difficult questions. We won't have perfect answers, so we muddle through. We try our best and hope that at least we don't make things worse. And it comes back to the old Hippocratic oath. That I'm not sure if doctors swear this any longer, but the old Hippocratic oath that all doctors were supposed to swear was part of it was, the first rule is, or first of all, do no harm. That all doctors should start by doing no harm. And these days, I don't think they do that any longer. I don't think they swear the oath. But I'm kind of going, we should all swear that oath. First of all, do no harm. And I try to live my life so that I do, well, as little harm as I can. And try to, when I do something, kind of go, okay, so am I being part of the solution or part of the problem? And I try to be part of the solution. And I try to show myself mercy when I'm not. But yeah, that's sort of what I'm trying to do.
And Gamu, do you think you have to be merciful for us in the West?
I have to really choose my words right, because this is kind of a touchy topic, if I can put it that way. But yeah, I think I totally agree. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, in this society that we're living in now, I have a feeling that there is this notion of me, myself, and I versus we together. So I kind of yeah, so going back to like let's talk about maybe developments in Africa and what's happening in Africa and how we can actually develop Africa. I always look at the education system and, you know, the process of actually change and wanting to have better and wanting to do better. And I'm thinking about, as we show mercy, as we practice humility, as we focus on, you know, humanity and improvements, we also need to focus on this. It's us together, not me wanting to do better for myself. So I think that's what I can say. I hope I really answered your question, because I think this is a really touchy topic, and I wouldn't want to throw, you know, away the wrong words, so to speak. But yeah, I totally agree. We need to show mercy, and we need to move on from whatever might have happened in the past, because I think there is no progress in focusing on what could have been. So we are here now. So what can we do to move forward?
It's interesting if you look, for instance, at the reconciliation committees in South Africa post-apartheid, the amount of work that actually had to be done to kind of show mercy and to move forward. And I do think there is still many forms of reconciliation that has to be directed towards Africa. It is a deep there are some deep traumas there. And of course, we should remember the problems are not just kind of the West against Africa. It's there's also kind of the West supporting structures in Africa by Africans that should not have been supported. If you have the time, the brilliant book Dictatorland, which looks at the dictatorships in Africa, is incredibly eye-opening about just how complex the issues that plagued many of even the wealthiest African nations were. So it's not these are not clear-cut problems. These are truly wicked problems of old colonial histories, corrupt systems in the here and now, which is not just Western systems, but also internal African systems that were corrupt, and collusion between various kinds of agents, including corporations, including Western nations, including, well, everything from intra-tribal strife and other issues in Africa. It is truly a mind-bogglingly complex problem to deal with. But at the same time, we also need to be prepared to say that, yeah, mistakes were made. And fairly humongous, life-changing, deeply structural mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I wanted to ask on also ideas and innovations, because I'm this kind of person, right? I think Ludwig knows this. We always talk about this, that sometimes I get carried away with ideas. It's like I think of something, then the next thing I'm like, okay, we can do that, we can do this. But I believe, and I know that for me to actually do something that's tangible, I probably need to focus on one idea and one thing. So how can you, what tips and what advice would you have for someone who has ideas and someone who's really keen on contributing something positive to the society, but they are not doing anything because they're just kind of, you know, daydreaming, or they kind of don't know which idea to focus on and what to really explore?
I mean, I could probably speak about this for 8 hours, and still there would be many other things not to be said. And I believe we need to round off fairly soon, so as not to completely mess up our schedules. But if there is one advice I could give in connection to this, it would simply be this. If you try to find the best idea and you sit there and go through all the ideas analytically, measure them on various scales and so on, and trying to find the one, the perfect one, you will never, ever innovate, because that is endless work. The true innovators tend to be the ones who just take any idea. Just take one idea. It doesn't matter if it's the best idea. It doesn't matter if it's seems the most impactful. Just take one idea and develop that. Because all great innovations have started from very sketchy, very unclear backgrounds. And they have grown as you work with them. I'm a huge fan of using kind of private life analogies. And here too, I think that something which I see a lot in the younger generation comes through, which I actually have kind of said this is sort of a problem for how the future of innovation is going to look. It's the Tinder problem. Now, I'm not I don't moralize about how people meet up, but Tinder, I think, is deeply problematic. Because what is Tinder? Well, Tinder is like this perfect smorgasbord, cavalcade of buffet of ideas. And you kind of go, yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no, yes. And you can go do that forever. Because Tinder basically tells you, if you just keep swiping, magic will happen and the person of your dreams will appear. Now, I'm old enough to be able to say this is not how deep, meaningful relationships actually work. Because if you keep swiping, hoping that the one turns up, you will swipe for fucking ever. Real relationships means you meet somebody, you accept the fact that they're not perfect, because frankly, none of us are perfect. I mean, I know Ludwig is pretty close, but none of the rest of us are fundamentally imperfect. And then you meet somebody else imperfect, and then you try to actually work with that relationship, and then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it can take years to actually realize this actually was, yes, this actually is the thing. And I'm not trying to be facetious or kind of make stupid analogies here. But I mean, the thing that sets innovators apart is they don't treat innovation as Tinder. They don't keep swiping, looking for the best idea. Because that swiping thing, it will never bring you true joy, true happiness. They find something, go, huh, I can work with this. And then they kind of go through the difficult work of trying to make that one idea work and to make it something grand. Just like a relationship is hard work, innovation is hard work. And without trying again to be too kind of cutesy, when I see how young people today approach relationships, I kind of sometimes worry a bit about if you truly believe this is how the world works, swipe your way to happiness. I'm not sure we're going to have a tremendous kind of development. Exactly. and I think this too needs to be part of innovation critique, is that I often am far... A final story, and then I'll shut up. I know how to shut up. You might not believe me, but I actually have the capability. I had 2 students when I was a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation in Stockholm. Very smart students. I liked them a lot. Particularly because they were kind of geeks and nerds and intellectuals, and they wanted to do really kind of intellectual, not very pragmatic things. And they wrote their master's thesis for me on trust in digital networks and really kind of more sociological stuff. And it was really, and I wanted to hire them as doctoral students, and I offered them because I had the money at the time. So I said, hey, come here. You come in my group. I'll make doctoral students. And they said, yeah, that sounds really nice and that's fun. But, we had this other idea. We're really both into kind of art music, because they were really into kind of very bizarro, arty music stuff. One of them really liked recording church bells and stuff and edit that into kind of weird soundscapes and so on. And said, so we want to kind of create a platform in which people who are really into this kind of weird electronic music we're into can kind of share their stuff and then comment and so on. And I listened to them and said, boys, I'm sorry. I love you, but that doesn't sound very smart. I mean, that's basically a crippled YouTube. You're going to be eaten alive. Nobody cares enough about a complex electronica. I'm sorry. I mean, of course, I'm not going to hold it against you that you don't kind of become doctoral students, but yeah, do you want to invest? No. And that company was SoundCloud, which was close to becoming a unicorn. So yes, the guys who founded SoundCloud, a Berlin-based company, by the way, they're now doing some stuff with electric bikes in Berlin. They were my students, and they presented their idea, and I didn't believe them. And goes to show, the early versions of an idea are shit. That doesn't mean you can't become insanely rich developing them and turning them into almost a unicorn. So yeah, it's the execution, not the idea.
A great final. Thank you very much for this discussion, this conversation, and but really we shot long behind our schedule. Yeah,
we can put them apart. We have like a series, and I think it would be great to have you back and talk a little bit more of how to find your mate and this. It's really great to listen to you, and I'm sure that a lot of people will also like it to watch it on YouTube, if they missed it tonight. And thank you so much, giving us your Saturday night. We made it earlier for you. Now it's almost as late. Yeah, thank you for that great gift, and hope to talk to you more.
Yes, this has been really fun. Thanks for everyone. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for great questions and great insights. And talk soon again, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much to Copenhagen.
Take care.
Take care.
Stay safe out there.
Okay.
Bye.
So we'll have a song for closing from Carolina Katún and TEOL, and I have missed to introduce the band. So we have the double bassist Nicolas Morceau, we have the guitarist Pierre Pachot, and we have the percussionist and drummer Arthur Allard. And of course, Carolina, if you're still there, get better and hope to see you soon. And thanks for your music.
Yeah, but we have to say a few words because tomorrow we are not on the show. We are back on Monday. And so if you like to join us, then we are back at 2021, the time of the year. And and now have a nice evening. And Camus, nice to have you in our team.
Thank you. Nice to have you too. I'm happy.
Rabia al silencio. Por la mucho que perdí. Un día monté a caballo y en la selva me metí. Un día monté a caballo y en la selva me metí. Y sentí que un gran silencio crecía dentro de mí. Que no se quede callado. quiera vivir feliz.